Oh, you are?
Yes, but I live just outside Philadelphia, and I am coming to you right now just outside Atlantic City because I'm going to the NAACP convention tomorrow.
Oh, very good, very good. Yeah, between that, in fact, we tried to get somebody from the NAACP to join us for this because they've been active on that student loan issue, but because of the convention, you know, they couldn't spare anybody. And I want to say hello to, oh, there's Carrington, good. To Celia Wexler. Where's Celia? Hi, Celia. We knew each other in Rochester, and now you're down here, correct? In Virginia?
Yeah, Alexandria. We're neighbors.
That's right. That's right. Right. I'm just south of Alexandria in Gum Springs, so it's a smaller world than we think. Oh, there's Chevry. Chevry, we found you. You found us. Athalia, Carrington, good to see you.
Good to see you too. How you doing?
Yes, yes, yes. All right. Well, now that you're here, that's you're the one we came to hear, whose story we came to hear. So I'm glad you're here. And Athalia and Chevry. Chevry, I realized I didn't have your number. So I'm glad you're here now. Rochelle, I made Rochelle a co-host. Do you want to? Can you have more than one co-host?
Yeah. Yeah. Me.
Okay, I'll make you co-host as well then. And there's Athalia. We can't see you, but we see your name.
Hello, everyone. And Richard, I'm happy to step down now that Chevry's here.
Okay. That's fine. That's good. Well, there's Dan Shelley. Good. Hello, Dan. All right. See a blank screen here for Dan, but he'll be with us too. He's the president of RTDNA. So he'll be there he is. Good to see you, Dan.
Good to see you.
All right, a valued addition to our panel. Betty Ann is here. One of our strategy committee members. Leon Dash, another one of the 7. Andrea Morales from MLK 50. There's Wally.
How are you?
Good to see you. Good to see you, man.
Good to see you.
And good to see you, Athalia.
Brother Prince.
Maureen, yes.
Hi.
Leon. Leon, I just saw you on Facebook at a baseball stadium. Is that it? There you are. Oh, good. This is going to be good. But we have 2 minutes before we officially start. And I want to thank John Watson also for being here from AU. AU, American University is now partners with Journal-isms. And once this COVID thing is finally put to rest, we will be meeting there at AU, also having Zoom available to us. So it'll be a hybrid with Zoom and people in person at American U. So we'll see how that works out.
Looking forward to that.
Yes, that will be good. Beth is here. Beth Freaking from, how you doing? Oh, she's one of the people who's gonna be in transit while we're doing this. She's now the editor of Education Week. But she and Maureen worked in the same building when she was at Politico, and Maureen was at WJLA. So that's a good thing. Our photographer is here, Sharon Farmer. Henry Furman.
Richard.
Good to see you out on the West Coast also.
Yeah. The West Coast. Sorry.
Retired from the LA Times, but active in the Asian American Journalists Association. Terry Shaw. Good to see Terry, my former Post co-worker. We did not have choir practice tonight, unlike many Tuesdays. Bob Butler's here too. Yay, Bob.
What's up, Scoop? How you doing?
Hi, Bob.
Got it. You got it. Lots of people know Bob. He was the former president of NABJ and has remained active in SAG-AFTRA out in California, Northern California. So, so that's a good thing.
SAG-AFTRA National.
Sorry?
The national, I'm on the national.
The
board
national, yeah, but
As one of the officers.
you're physically in Northern California. So that's good. Okay, it's 7 o'clock. Carol's here from the Chronicle of Higher Education. Wayne Dawkins, who lives and breathes advocate for higher education now that he's at
Wayne
Morgan State.
Dawkins. Holy moly.
Okay. I'm going to start because it's 7:01 and I want to keep on schedule. So I'm going to welcome everybody to the Journal-isms Roundtable. We've been doing this since 1999 when a bunch of friends had dinner and decided that we wanted to honor one of our colleagues who was leaving town. And she said, keep this going. Wait, no, I'm getting an echo now.
Somebody needs to mute their phone, computer.
Okay.
Do you have two devices in space, Richard?
No, I only have one device. Okay. Well.
Wayne, are you muted?
How about if I turn down?
It's not to someone needs to mute their phone.
Is this, can you hear me now? No, you can't hear me.
No, we can hear you. That's better.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you hear me now? Yes. Okay.
Yes.
And only once, I hope. Okay. Well, in any case, this journal.
Television at that time. I loved working on Cliff's show. The guests were the cream of the crop from government, business, academia, media, entertainment, and sports. They were world-class movers and shakers that made you proud to be Black. Cliff was easily approachable and exceptionally accomplished. After being around him, I started thinking about going to law school. Remember, I'm like 24 at the time. I wanted a taste of Cliff's world, but all that changed. One day during the shooting of the show, Gene became irritated with the reaction time of the director and the show's pace. He was too slow. He made the show uninviting to watch and shot it like it was a job. In the middle of the show, in the control room, I'm sitting next to the producer. Gene turned to me and asked, "Do you think you can direct this show?" I wanted to say, "Hell yeah," but I was reserved and simply said yes. She turned to the director to request something, which he dismissed offhandedly, as he did so, as he always did. She shot back, "That's okay, Dave. You won't be doing the show much longer anyway." I almost choked. The next week, I started directing Cliff Alexander, Black on White. This was one of the few nationally syndicated Black shows in production. Cliff was ecstatic. Not only did the show look great, but he had a Black director. Cliff was the star and executive producer. He was responsible for syndication, which he accomplished through phone calls to well-placed friends. We were in all the top 10 markets. The show went off the air in 1974 when Cliff ran for mayor of Washington, D.C. Cliff and I stayed in touch over the years, and he never missed a chance to tell me how important Gene and I were to him. He often invited me to prestigious events and would introduce me with, "This is my director, Wally Ashby." If it hadn't been for him, I would not have had such a life-altering experience take place. I learned from Cliff that the most important thing that you can do in life is to share your success and help someone else. Like the song says, if I can help somebody, thank you and God bless you into eternity, Cliff Alexander, your director, Wally Ashby.
All right, thank you, Wally.
Thank you so much, Wally. That was beautiful. That was really, really beautiful. I just wanted to add a few things, if I may, Richard. Cliff understood the power of communications, the power of media, especially the power of electronic media. And during the mid-60s to the mid-70s was the period when the federal government was working toward more inclusion of us in business, in federal jobs, in the military, etc. And there could not have been a better leader and spokesperson for diversity, for inclusion, and for equity than Cliff Alexander. He had an impeccable resume. He had an imposing voice, imposing physical presence. And just as Wally said, no nonsense. He went in and he got the job done. Colin Powell was one of his, of the beneficiaries of Cliff's presence in the Army, Cliff's presence as Secretary of the Army. Who knows how many people benefited from Cliff's presence as head of the Equal Opportunity Commission. And he also stood up for us in the media. In addition to doing what he did for you and Metro 7, he represented a lot of people, a lot of African Americans who were in media, including myself. And he also worked to help change, especially television, but television as well as the print media, to change the attitude of the owners and the managers of TV, radio, and newspaper operations. He went into their offices to talk to them. He didn't write notes. He didn't, he didn't threaten. He just told them what the truth was. And as Wally said, the truth was, we belong in these places. And without us and without Cliff's work, a lot of us wouldn't have jobs today, much less have any influence over the life and politics of the United States. Cliff also was on a lot of boards, including some boards of media companies. And as I said, he made his presence felt. He was not warming a seat. He made his presence felt. He did things for people without, how should I say? He didn't seek attention. He didn't seek gratitude. He didn't seek a place in the spotlight. And I think one of that, because he did not, he was able to function more successfully behind the scenes. As I said, in the boardrooms. He was on the board of the American Stock Exchange. So he knew that change had to come not only from the ground level, but it also had to come from the top. And he knew how to bring the top and the ground level together. And I'll tell you one quick story. In 1995, I left, I was in the process of leaving Channel 9 at the time. And there was a bit of a dust up, shall we say, over my departure. And Cliff came to my rescue. He, along with Robert Barnett, who's, one of the top personal contract lawyers in the country, they walked into the offices of the management at Channel 9 and said, in no uncertain terms, "You will not treat this woman the way you have said you are going to treat her.
All right.
And here is how you're going to do it." And they did it. They did it. I really want to impress upon all of us that Cliff's impact on us as journalists was not in the headlines of the New York Times. The New York Times and many of the other obituaries wrote about Cliff as an official, as someone who had all these titles, EEOC, Secretary of the Army, etc. But he also spoke out for all of us, and we owe him a debt. We really, really owe him a big debt. Thank you very much. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Maureen. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, I see Ron Taylor is with us, and that means that this is the first time, one of the first times in our 50 years that all the Metro 7 have been in the same place at the same time. So congratulations to us. Does anybody in the Metro 7 or someone else want to say another quick word about Cliff before we go on to the next segment? Now, that means that Maureen has said it all? Is that it?
Richard, I
Yes.
understand that Cliff and Adele's daughter, Elizabeth, is on this Zoom session.
I haven't seen her yet. Okay.
Okay, she said she was going to join us.
Yeah,
And, if she does, could we ask her to make just a quick comment about her father?
definitely.
Great. And Elizabeth, by the way, Elizabeth Alexander, who's the daughter of Cliff and Adele Alexander, is president of the Mellon Foundation currently. And we all know her and love her, of course, because she was the poet at the first inauguration of President Obama.
Yes. Okay. All right. Well, I think Cliff has been well remembered, and if anyone else has thoughts about Cliff, please put them in the chat. Now, I wanted we wanted to squeeze in Dawn Bracely, who was a colleague of mine in Rochester, and now she's on the editorial board of the Buffalo News. And we all know what happened in Buffalo at that Tops supermarket and what happened to the community there. In fact, there have been developments in the last few days in that the suspect has been charged. I think he was arraigned, and the supermarket has reopened. But I wanted to ask Dawn if she could just tell us briefly what's happened to that community since then. Dawn, please fill us in.
Okay. Yeah, it was such a devastating situation, and I've been here 21 years, and as you mentioned, we worked together in Rochester. I was there 10 and a half years, and I'm from the DC area, actually, born in DC, raised in Maryland. So to say that this is something that you just didn't expect. I was actually on the street that day, trying to come down the street with a friend of mine who decided, oh, I'll just take Riley, which runs right by Tops. And we could see the blockade. We didn't know what was going on and found out about the devastation later. I went to the supermarket Saturday about 7 o'clock in the evening. And the first thing I noticed was the repaved parking lot. Prior to that, it was a very small Tops, very small grocery store. Good for them for going into the community, because that took 20 years and they opened in 2003. But also, there was lots of security there. You walk in, you see the fresh fruits and vegetables. The first thought, they expanded it within that plaza. And the first thought, of course, like others, was why couldn't they have done this before? But you know what? Congratulations to Tops for doing it in the first place, for being there in the first place, because that is a food desert. The thing is that now the Tops is sticking out like a sore thumb because it is shiny, brand new. It looks like a suburban supermarket amid a lot of neglect and need. So there, I'll give the governor, who's from Buffalo, Kathy Hochul, credit, well, from Hamburger, what have you, credit for pouring state funds into the area. So she's pouring in about $50 million for housing right now, $3 million to the African American Heritage Food Co-op that's been around. There's been millions of dollars donated and going into, the Black community there in that zip code 14208. And to the survivors, to the families of the victims, it's still, you feel it every day, you think about it every day. And hope is that maybe out of all of this devastation, there can be some renewal. There needs to be some renewal. I know, Prince, you might have noticed this shooter, was very calculated. Not only did he stake out the place, but he looked at Rochester, he looked at Syracuse, and he settled on Buffalo because that particular zip code is 70 some odd % Black. And that's where he found his victims. And he was going to move on after he shot up the supermarket. It's just horrible. So I don't know how else to describe. It's a lot of pain. Those people have been through everything. And they're just trying to get through.
I hear you. Is there anything you think that the rest of us journalists should be paying attention to about this situation?
You know, I think at this point, you know, as journalists, and the Buffalo News has been on a story virtually every day, and so is local television. I think that we need to pay attention to promises made to make sure that promises are kept. That community, which is a poor community, is being lifted up, you know, with a social safety net, with job training, educational opportunities. I mean, there have already been these things in place, but I was talking to the mayor's spokesman today, and, you know, I said, you know what, you did need state funding. You know, the mayor couldn't have done it all by himself. You know, he's historically the fifth term mayor, and that was in the news because that almost didn't happen. But he can't do it by himself. And I think, and he's in Washington today. I spoke at the White House, but we need to make sure that there's follow through. They're not forgotten. Just as Assembly Majority Leader Crystal Stokes said, you know, once the cameras leave, the national cameras, you know, we're still going to be here.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, we have time for one question for Dawn, if anyone has a question. Otherwise, you can put them in the chat. Okay. We answered what everyone was on everybody's
I
mind.
have a question,
Yes.
Richard. Dawn, what is the status of Black journalists in Rochester? In Buffalo?
Well, there's the Buffalo Association of Black Journalists. Rod Watson, who's a longtime columnist at the Buffalo News and editor, semi-retired at this point, began that organization along with Al Vauders, who just retired. And you know, the Black journalists, there are more. We see more on television. That was a big issue, where we weren't seeing ourselves on TV news. In the last few years, we've been seeing an uptick in that, and the BABJ has tried to, you know, get some answers. You know, why aren't we seeing Black anchors? Why aren't we seeing? And I grew up watching you, and so I appreciate the question. There should be more. There could be more. We often hear, and you remember this, Prince, people would say, oh, we just can't get anyone because it's too cold. You know, the weather's too bad. And, you know, my response was always like, we all said this, you know what, it's a job. You know, people want jobs. You know, they're not worried about the weather. That's just a poor excuse. But, you know, and nowadays I hear people make the excuse, and maybe it's a valid one, that they can't find anyone. Everyone's having trouble finding employees. It could be better. It could definitely be better. People often move on. This is a stepping stone, and they move on.
Well, thank you. We have some TV people who can definitely address that if they choose in the chat or elsewhere. So thank you very much, Dawn. Appreciate that. Now we want to move on to our topic A, which is the student loan crisis and how it is affecting the pipeline of Black journalists. And this all started by with an essay that was done by Carrington Tatum, who was here, and I want to ask him to tell those who haven't read it or just repeat it in his own words, what happened to him and caused him to write that essay. And then I'm going to ask our panelists to respond to what he said in terms of what can be done and how they see the situation. So Carrington, you're on. Please enlighten us.
Great. I really appreciate y'all for having me. It's been a minute since I wrote the piece, and I've had some time to sit with it. But kind of going back, the essay really focused on a conundrum I found myself in, kind of squeezed between rising rents and crushing student loan debt that I took out to get my journalism degree. Between those two things, it kind of forced me out of what was a really great job as an environmental justice reporter at MLK 50 Justice Through Journalism in Memphis, founded and led by Miss Wendi Thomas, who is also somewhere in the chat, but as well as Andrea Morales, visual director and partner in crime while I was in Memphis. But it was a really it was a shocking moment for me because I was very early in my career. MLK 50 was actually my first full-time position right out of college. And, going in, I knew I was at home because justice reporting is all I ever really wanted to do. Once I sort of got my footing as a reporter, and it really all came, it was a sudden hit. And as I've described it, it's certainly not the way that I expected my journalism career to go. And I ended up having to leave, move back home here in Dallas, where I am now. And actually, as an update to that piece that I haven't tweeted out, I actually started recently as a business analyst for the Dallas Morning News. So with some time to reflect, it's been about a month or so, I believe. It's certainly not the path that I thought my career would take, but I think we did some fantastic journalism, and I'm starting to reconsider and review the way I see things now as not so much a loss or a setback, but really just a change of direction.
So you don't see yourself going back into journalism?
Oh, certainly. And a little bit about this business analyst position at the Morning News. It is really working with data, but serving the newsroom directly, helping the newsroom strategize on content, and really it is going to sustain me and sort of make up for the drain of student loans. Because it's important to note, and we talk about this in the piece, it's important to note that MLK 50 paid a fantastic salary for our market, for our field, but it was the crushing weight of student loans, particularly the private loans, that I had to take out that were really, eating up any gains that came from that salary. And again, as we talk about in the piece, there are students of color like myself, students who don't come from money, are more dependent on not only debt in general to go to school, but particularly predatory private student loan debt. And so this new position here is really going to sustain me and keeps me in the field too, to hopefully find a way to write again, whether on my own terms or in a position down the road.
Okay. Wendi, do you what do you say to that? Wendi runs the and founded the MLK 50 project.
Thanks, Richard, for reaching out to me and Carrington and having us be a part of this. This is a real treat. It's good to see so many faces that I recognize. So good to see y'all, be with y'all. Yeah, this was a really tough thing. As I wrote in my companion piece, all of this was going down while I was in Italy with COVID. I'd gone over there for an international journalism festival. And I was very stressed, not surprisingly. And so all this was happening, and my team wisely kept me from some of the decisions that were being made. It would have just stressed me out more. And so by the time I learned about it, Carrington had already made his decision. And so I feel really badly in some ways. I feel like I failed Carrington in a lot of ways because I knew he had student loans, but I didn't know that it was to the point where he was considering leaving the profession. It's really caused me and my executive editor and my HR development specialist to really think critically about what it means to commit to economic justice in all things, not just in our reporting, but also in how we run our newsroom. We're thinking a lot about what does reparations look like, right? If we were to try to put that in practice in terms of a newsroom to repair the kind of financial harm that has been done to people like Carrington, right? Who don't come from intergenerational wealth, who took out loans for degrees that probably weren't going to pay them, get an initial return, immediate return on that investment. And so it's been eye-opening and humbling, I think, in a lot of ways, but this is the work, right, that we sign up to do when you start a newsroom and when you commit to doing journalism differently in a way that's compassionate and also courageous. So I don't know that we have any answers yet, but we are, for example, one of the things that I was told the team today is that one of the COVID relief acts allows employers to repay some of employees' student loans and it not show up on their W-2 as income. And so we're going to offer that as a benefit to any employee that qualifies. We're doing things like Andrea, my visual director on the call today, she doesn't know this, but we're working with our to get a different insurance plan where the deductible is a lot lower, right? So how can we do everything we can to lessen the economic burden on employees and pay fairly so that they can not just survive, but also thrive? Yes, I don't know if that answers your question, Richard, but.
Okay, well, thank you. That's good. Now we have one of the folks who are in the industry who can address the issue of the salaries that beginners make. But I have to tell you, I spoke with, she can't be with us, Stephanie Reed, who is a reporter. She was reporting in Rochester and then she went to the Atlanta Journal and Constitution, where she covered education. And now she works with families who are trying to get into college. And she says that one of the big problems is that these families are taking on debt that they have no way to repay. In other words, instead of going to a community college or a college that doesn't require as much money, they're going to the colleges that get them into a lot of debt and that they bear a lot of the responsibility for this problem. So that's something that we could factor in to this discussion. I see Ashley is here. Do you want to address this?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone, and thank you, Richard, for having me. My name is Ashley Harrington. I'm a senior advisor at the Office of Federal Student Aid, Department of Education. And so I have a couple of things. One, specifically for you, Carrington, and you, Wendi, one thing that you noted is that you work at a nonprofit, right? And so in one of the ways that we're working to help people manage student debt is we've made significant changes to the public service loan forgiveness program. We've now forgiven over $8 billion for 144,000 borrowers. You get forgiveness after 10 years or 120 qualifying payments, and you work at government agencies or nonprofits. Your organization sounds like it qualifies as a nonprofit. I think it's a 501c3. So you could actually use some of that time, Carrington, towards that 10 years. And Wendi, this is something that you could be, advertising to your employees. A great retention thing is something that, for-profit news outlets and for-profit companies in general don't have the ability to say that you work with us for 10 years or you work at multiple nonprofits or government agencies for 10 years. Sorry, that's really bright to the side. And you can get your loans forgiven. And there's been a lot of problems with this program over the years, but this administration has really prioritized fixing that. Before this administration, only 7,000 people had gotten forgiveness, and now we're at over 144,000. And it's because we have this limited waiver going on right now. So if you know people with with student loans and who are in public service, which is government, nonprofit, you should tell them, because they have until October 31 to take advantage of this waiver. And it's a big deal. It's a game changer. I've only been in the department since August, but I've been working on student loans for a while. And this is game changing. They don't ask about your income. They don't ask about what you do there. They just want to know where you work. And so this is one way that you can advertise. The other thing is we're trying to make it easier in general for everyone, not just public servants, to manage their loans. And so we're looking at how we improve income-based repayment, and we're making sure people know they have options, right? There are 4 different income-based repayment plans. They each calculate your payment differently in a different percentage. So you can use the tools on our website to figure out which one makes the most sense. A lot of people, you could get on IBR and have a $0 payment, and that could still count towards your forgiveness on IBR or PSLF. So there's ways. We know that this system is broken. There's a student debt crisis and it hits our communities the hardest, right? We know that. And there's a lot we can be doing, but there's a lot that we are doing right now. And we're looking at it from so many different angles. We have so many initiatives, and our goal is really to make this system work better and to make higher education more affordable overall.
Thank you, Ashley. Now I'd like to hear from the people who work in broadcasting. That is Dan Shelley of RTNDA, and Mary Cavallaro, and Bob Butler, perhaps, if he wants to, about the issue of the salaries, the starting salaries at broadcast stations, and of course at newspapers as well, but they know more about broadcast, and how that might contribute to the situation that people like Carrington are in, and what can be done about that. So Dan, I'll let you speak first.
Thank you, Richard. For those I don't know, I'm Dan Shelley. I'm the president of the Radio, Television, Digital News Association. And we do annual research on a number of topics related to the broadcast and now digital journalism industry. And one of the things that we have found, particularly in the last couple of years, is that there is and Bob posted a link to an excellent article by Andrew Hayward, the former president of CBS News, who's now with Cronkite Labs at ASU's Cronkite School of Journalism in Phoenix. But there's a tremendous need for journalists in local broadcast newsrooms today. So Carrington, I urge you to consider getting into television or getting into radio, because the companies that own the overwhelming majority of local radio and TV stations that operate newsrooms across the country are looking for people like you. And they're looking not just for on-air positions, not just for photojournalist positions, but for producer positions, for people who have a journalism background, whether it be in print or in digital, who can easily bring a different, a unique skill set to local newsrooms that many don't often have. To your question of salaries, Richard, a lot of companies have seen the need. There is, as I noted, and as Andrew Hayward's piece points out quite eloquently, there is a crisis in recruiting in broadcast news these days. And it is for a lot of reasons. There was pandemic burnout. There was burnout related to what I call the terrible trifecta of 2020, which was the George Floyd situation and all that provoked, as well as the pandemic, as well as the contentious presidential and local election cycles that were going on across the country. And that caused a lot of burnout. That caused a lot of journalists to unfortunately say, I've had enough, I'm leaving the business, I can't take this anymore. Trust in journalism, as you've seen in many of the major surveys that have been published by reputable research companies, has eroded, in part because of the whole enemy of the people factor, but there are other reasons for that as well. A bright spot with regard to trust is that survey after survey consistently shows that people tend to trust local broadcast journalism more than they trust national news outlets. And my apologies to anyone affiliated with a national news outlet now or in the past, but that's what the research shows. This September at our annual conference in Indianapolis, we'll be revealing some groundbreaking research on how journalists can rebuild trust, and the results will surprise you in their simplicity. They will surprise you in how easy they are to accomplish, but they will also make you scratch your head and wonder, well, that's the way we used to do it. Why aren't we doing it anymore? And why can't we go back to that? Now, I bring all of those things up to say, that in the aggregate, they all contribute to this environment where there is a desperate need for young journalists. There's a desperate need for journalists, period, regardless of their age, and a desperate need, particularly in local broadcast newsrooms. And companies are more and more willing to pay salaries that help pay off student loans, salaries that make it worth your time and your effort to be in a profession that can be very rewarding, serving communities where you live. And I think that's the 30,000-foot view. But I can get into more specifics later. But the main point is, if you want a job in broadcast journalism today, particularly at the local level, you almost certainly can find one.
All right. Well, you're getting a lot of blowback, I see, from in the chat here from people who say that that's all well and good, but we need money. So let
me say to that,
Yes.
I acknowledge that, and I'm not here to defend the practices of the past, but I am telling you, based on our own research, based on conversations I've had with broadcast journalists and with people who operate local newsrooms, broadcast and digital across the country, these concerns are being heard, and in many places, sadly not all, in many places the issue is being addressed.
Okay. What do our SAG-AFTRA people have to say about that? Mary or Bob?
So I usually like to have members go first, Bob, but
No.
because I'm the one that usually is the person asking for the money, I'll go first. So first of all, thank you for inviting me here. It's really an honor to be in this room with all of you. So I've been doing this for about 25 years now. And one of the things that's very unique about the broadcast television and radio industry is the way that our compensation structure works. And I don't think there's a lot of other industries that have this ladder of compensation based on the market size. Sometimes it's cost of living, but we have this concept that has existed forever, that if you want to work in television or even radio in a smaller market, which is where you start right out of J school, or historically, because I'll get to that, you're going to start with a smaller salary, and you don't see that in a lot of other industries. So, if you have somebody that gets a business degree and decides they want to go work for an insurance company, just because they're working in White River Junction, Vermont, doesn't mean they're making, a tenth of what somebody's making in Rochester, and that's what we see a lot of. So I think, for those markets, I don't know how we change that structure, or if that's even possible. I hope that it is. I'm starting to see those salaries go up. They are mostly non-union markets, as you might guess, but we are starting to see improvements there. I think, where we can help with those markets, if people go that route, is on the policy front. Ashley spoke about this program that's out there. I was just on a call on it the other day. And there are so many, I think, reasons for many of us who, whether we're unions or journalist support organizations, we should really be getting together and looking for policy ways of addressing this issue for journalists, because journalists are important to our democracy. And I think it's important that we come together and maybe find ways to collectively address this in a policy way, because those small markets are going to pay $30,000 a year, and I don't know that we're going to be able to change that overnight. I saw in the chat a lot of discussion about the MMJ pay. One of the things that SAG-AFTRA has been accomplishing as of late is we have MMJs paid a premium in many of our markets.
MMJ, for those who don't know.
Thank you. Multimedia journalist, that's somebody who is shooting and reporting at the same time. And while we're not crazy about the concept where it happens, we try to get them protections, of course, but also enhanced compensation. But, just what we do as a union is bargain collectively and hope to raise the tide for everyone. And we are not in every market. But where we are, we've been fairly successful as of late trying to get those salaries up. I do see this issue that Dan referred to of burnout and turnover being just plaguing newsrooms everywhere. And what that does to the individual who's impacted and leaves is one thing. It also has an impact on the people who are left, who are, having to recreate how they put that show together or that newscast together. And that creates burnout in itself. So it's compensation, but it's also other things that we need to make sure that our employers provide for people who work in this industry to provide support, whether it be mental health counseling and those kinds of things, time off, real time off, meaningful time off, just checking in with people who are going through those things. So there's more that we do, SAG-AFTRA does, than just ask for money. It's those other kind of life-changing, work-life balance kind of things that need to be addressed. It's compensation. People need, they come out of the school with huge loans. So that's one thing. But if they can't even survive in their job because they're exhausted, that's a bigger problem. But I've been thinking about this in terms of like real solutions. And a lot of companies have tuition reimbursement programs for their employees. And I think there may be a way to kind of lobby these employers to provide something sort of like that, but like a commitment to help people pay back their loans. If you're going to go work for NBC in a smaller market or one of their affiliates, maybe there's a program that we can kind of push to have them help pay the cost of their education in a different way. And then we see a lot of, the last thing I'll touch on is in these personal service contracts. Those are the employment contracts that people sign in television and in radio. There's a lot of very restrictive covenant type language. I saw a couple of employers mentioned, and they use that language, liquidated damages, that if you want to quit your job before your contract expires, and sometimes you have to do it because you can't afford to live, you have to pay the company some money. Why don't we reverse that and find ways to have the company encourage you to stay? And if helping you with your student loan debt, supporting you in your educational endeavors is one way to keep that person employed, that's a huge win for these employers. And the last thing I'll say is public media to Carrington, because I will just say that there are huge efforts in public media in hiring, and I would encourage you in pay equity and fairness. I would encourage you to look in that area as well. So that was a lot, but I'll let Bob.
That was good. As I said earlier, there's a lot of blowback on this issue in the chat. Rebecca Aguilar might have something to say here. She's the president of SPJ, Society of Professional Journalists.
You know what, Richard, I'm going to let Bob Butler talk before I do, because I'm also the founder of Latinas in Journalism. And so a lot of this, first of all, I did 28 years in TV news. Just yesterday, I talked to somebody in Wilmington, North Carolina, a woman with 8 years experience, and her starting pay was $28,000. Imagine how much the federal government takes, right? So while we talk about these surveys and reports and whatever, a lot of it is bullshit. I'm sorry. We're still not helping these people. It is. It all looks good on paper to make people of color and women feel good, but it's not happening. And so I recommend that RTDNA take a serious look, have some panels, talk about it. How do you make these people work like dogs, edit, shoot, do their own live shots, get out there in danger, and you're only paying them $28,000, or in Dallas, maybe 45. It just angers me because everybody loves to talk about these surveys and all they do, but I've been seeing this for, at least 41 years. I've been in the business, 28 in TV news, same surveys, same promises, same everything. But I don't see these panels at these conventions like RTDNA. Like, come on, guys, let's start paying these people. These people are burning out. Great journalists are leaving the business. And many of them are people of color because yes, we have these humongous loans. So they'd rather see us go and always say, oh, we're looking for young, energetic people. Yeah, but who burns them out? These TV news bosses. So that's my recommendation. Get it together, stop with the surveys, stop with the talk, do something. Sorry, I'm angry, but I've been hearing it for so long that nobody solves it. Nobody solves it. It's just a bunch of talk. And we have a lot of good people, people of color who are leaving and they shouldn't. So that's my take.
As she smiles as she concludes. All right, Bob, your name came up, Bob Butler. Go ahead.
Yeah, So I've been involved in mentoring the next generation of journalists for a long time. And starting pay is abysmal. But there's a reason for that. I want to talk about this from the company side. You know, I'm not defending the companies, but this is how they think. All right, I have all these job openings. I have to make sure I protect my company's bottom line. So I'm going to offer as little as I can. You know, when I started at KCBS, it was owned by CBS Radio. Somewhere around, I don't think 1988, 89, we were sold to a company called Infinity Radio. At the time we had, I think it was about a 27% profit margin coming out of our station. They wanted 40% overnight. So that means you had to cut back in order to meet that 40%. That's where our biggest problem is. It's not that, it's the bean counters at these companies who want to protect the bottom line. And, you know, that's the bottom line. They want to make sure that they take care of their shareholders more than they take care of their employees. And when you have a station that has 30 employees, the biggest complaint I hear from people in the industry, on the management side of the industry, is I've got to watch, you know, how much money I spend. You know, I can't at my company, I can't work overtime unless I get approval from a manager. One manager called me to cover a breaking news story, and without thinking, I went ahead and got it, because, you know, that's what we do. It's breaking news, you go. When I was doing my timesheet, I put on like 2 hours of overtime, and I got pushback. Who approved it? I said, well, the news director sent me. That wasn't approval. Did she tell you to work overtime? It's that kind of stupid stuff that we have to deal with. So I think that's a big problem, is that these companies they're making money hand over fist. They don't want to share it. And I think that's not just a problem with journalism and broadcast journalism. It's a problem with the entire country, with the corporate America. They want to take as much money as they can for their shareholders, and they don't care about the workers. So how do we solve that? I don't know, you know, but I know that when I talk to young people that want to get a job in the industry, and they want me to look at their contract to see what they're signing, because they don't know what they're signing, I explain it to them. I explain to them the liquidated damages. I explain what a non-compete is. I explain these things to them. And when it comes to the pay, I'm seeing what they're making, and it's abysmal. It has not changed very much. Now, I've had some news directors say, yeah, well, I was making $19,000 a year. Well, you know, that was in 1965. Cost of living was a lot less back then. I think a starting wage right now has got to be in the $50,000 range. And that allows you to eat and pay rent and pay back your student loans. But not many companies are doing that for entry-level reporters. It's really, really bad.
Okay, Chris, are you there?
I would like to, can I jump in here?
Okay, sure.
Yeah, because so I've been running this graduate broadcast journalism program for Syracuse University for 12 years. And that degree, which is 58 weeks, cost them north of $60,000. In the past like 5 years, we finally saw starting salaries that these people with a master's degree were getting offered, finally breaking $30,000 a year. They go into small markets. You're talking about making overtime? What's that? They don't make any overtime. They work the shift that they're assigned. And that's another part of the problem that Rebecca was referring to too. They are working ridiculous hours, and they're working around the clock schedules because they may be working the traffic report for the early morning show. So that means they go in at 2 in the morning or 3 in the morning to be at the 4:30 newscast or something like that. And they have those assignments for maybe more than a year. That does something to a body.
Right.
That does something to these journalists. So then they may go to a bigger market and they'll make, oh my gosh, maybe $40,000 for their next 2-year contract. And then finally, by the time they get to the third contract, they may be in a position to make a living wage. But by that time, that's when we start to lose them. They're burned out. And they were passionate journalists before. When they were in class, they couldn't wait to get out and cover stories, as opposed to doing live shots at MMJs at 11 o'clock at night where something happened 5 hours before. That's part of the way that we lose them. And that the combination of having to pay off those loans. I've had students who sold plasma with their first job. I've had students who worked fast food restaurants, additional side hustles, because their salaries just weren't compensation enough, and finding a place to live. That's the way that it's been for a long time. Rebecca's right. And for some of these news directors, it's that they had an experience for over 10 years. The salaries were totally flat and they could get away with that. And the rap was there are 5 people outside the door waiting to take your job. And that's not like that anymore. But it's really hard for them to accept that they have to really pay more money. The salaries have come up some, but not enough. And that's going to cost us.
It's not just the salaries too, it's also the working conditions. I have a colleague who is a director at a TV station and she does the morning news, but she comes in and works Monday through Friday, and because they're short staffed, she's also doing Saturday mornings also. She's working a schedule 6 days a week, and the company has not hired anybody else to take the burden off of her. So she's one of those people that I'm afraid that we will lose because she's probably making decent money, but it's the burnout. It's the fact that you have to do this, and you kind of gave me some snark about getting overtime, and that's why I work in a union station. That's because we're in the union that we get overtime. But a lot of these people that I talk to are going to non-union stations, the Sinclairs, the Nextstars, and in the contract it says they get overtime. But a lot of these news directors, a lot of these managers, so well, listen, it's only 3 or 4 hours. We'll give you some time off. We'll give you some calm time. And in my case, I have a choice of taking the calm time or the overtime, but I'm gonna take the money.
But I just want to jump in real quick. Bob, reality check. All right. Not everybody works in a big market like you. I got people that I mentor, at least 45 people around the country, from Abilene to Toledo to, Tulsa, Oklahoma, down in Florida, up in Oregon. They don't get to be in a union. They don't get that option. So while you talk about that, let's have a reality check. Okay. That's number one. Number two, I think we can do something. We push back. As SPJ president, as a founder of Latinas in Journalism, every week I have news directors, general managers contacting me. Rebecca, I have an opening for this. Usually they want someone bilingual or whatever, right? And so what I say to them is, how much are you paying? I need to know up front. Tell me about your new news director. Toxic, what's he like? I need to, if I'm gonna put my name on something and put someone there, they're gonna be safe. And I've said, I'm not helping you. I've heard of that news director. He's toxic.
Yeah.
So sometimes we have to take it by the, you know what I mean? We need to take it in our own hands because some of these organizations, again, there's so many surveys and this and that, and it's not working. Sometimes as people of color, as us right here, and I'm not Black, but I'm a Latina, but I watch out for my Black sisters and brothers too, and Asian and Native American and LGBTQ. Sometimes we have to take it in our hands and say, you know what? You're not gonna treat these people like this anymore. I had a news director, I had a news director who only wanted to pay $40,000 for an entry-level position in a medium market. I said, you got to give him 65 at least. Go get it. You guys have the money. He did. If you don't ask, they don't tell. And what happens is many people of color have been told, keep your head down, be proud of the job you have. And they don't say shit. You got to speak up. Silence is not an option. And these managers right now, producers, especially in TV news, they're like pilots. There's more openings than there are producers as pilots. So remember, we are in control. We are in control. Thank you.
Richard, I want to mention a couple of things. Thank you. First of all, I want to co-sign what Rebecca has said because, we listen to Kerner Commission updates. We listen to the same complaints. It's been going on for 40 years. One of the things that I think we ought to push for in both broadcast and print newsrooms, as long as there's still print newsrooms, which won't be long, is that, as a bonus, you pay a young reporter's student debt. You take care of that money. That could be the signing bonus. There needs to be something drastic to make it happen because, we talk in this country about the teacher shortage and we don't have enough teachers because of the retirements that are going and we're acting like that's not real. We've got a real shortage in journalism. I was looking at Todd's comment in the chat about going to his alma mater graduation and seeing all of these Black women and like most of them were not going into journalism. I am seeing that here in Michigan as well. We're talking young people who could be brilliant future journalists who are not going to do it because they can't get paid. The second thing is, and I had this conversation with an editor who was not Black. There was a lawsuit filed in the Detroit Free Press newsroom by women who said they were underpaid compared to males. And he and I talked about it. And he said, well, women don't ask for raises. White males come in every month, every 3 months and ask for a bump. but you can have people who are working in the newsroom 10 years and never ask for a raise. So I think that one of the things we do have to do is to give these young people some life lessons while we're giving them journalism and history lessons. So I seriously am very concerned about what's going to happen, not just with what's happening with teaching, what's happening with journalism, but the fact that all of that will affect how we are viewed, not just in the history books, but in our daily lives. We literally are not going to have people to write any types of truths because we won't have any people in the newsrooms and we won't have any people in the classrooms. So I just wanted to mention that. I have to go on another Zoom, but before I leave, I wanted to say hello. There's so many great faces here of people I know. I'm Rochelle Riley, longtime columnist who is now Director of Arts and Culture for the City of Detroit and a member of the Journal-isms Board. And I just need to know where Maureen Bunyan keeps her portrait of Dorian Gray. So I need to borrow it. I just want to have it for a little bit. But I'm so glad to see hi Athalia and Ingrid. And I'm just so glad that we have these and we have to continue the fight. I mentor 22 young people on behalf of the 22 founders in my sorority. It was just a way to keep up with them. And all of them are underpaid or fighting for salary. And every time I tell them, go in and demand, they're scared to death to do it. I just went through this with one of my young people and she said, I'm going to go in, but I don't know that I should ask for more money. I said, then don't go in. If you're not going in to tell them to pay you what you're worth, don't do it. So she went in, she said she deserved a raise. They said they'd consider it. She wrote a hell of a story. Literally 2 days later, they called her in and gave her a raise. And I said, you go in every 30 days and ask for more money. So thank you so much, everyone. It was so good to see you all. I hate, all these Zooms. Hi, my friend Lynn. I'll talk to you later.
Okay, thank you, Rochelle. All right, is Krista still here? Krista Thompson? I see your picture.
I'm here, Richard.
Okay, good. Well, as somebody who, this may not be your area, but as somebody who works in the print media and at a big paper, when you hear all these comments about the attitudes of management in broadcasting, do you see any of that reflected, or how much of that do you see reflected at a big paper like the Post?
Yeah, I do definitely see some similarities. I think, at the Post in particular, and I know the same for some of the other big newspapers, there are sort of more defined entry points, the internships, the fellowships, and I would say the starting salaries are more often in the big cities, in the 60s, rather than the 40s or the 50s, but these are expensive cities to live in. And you do find that, fairly quickly, obviously, if you're right out of college, there's a bit of an experience gap. There's some learning that happens on the job, but, we find, with some of our sharpest young reporters that within 3 to 5 years, they're performing like people who've been in the industry for a really long time. And so then you do begin to deal very quickly with equity issues and, finding, not just merit, but equity as something that we have to deal with as we're looking, every year to make sure across teams that people are being paid fairly. As someone who started at the Washington Post as an intern myself, you do find, very quickly that there does become this, chasm in pay between those who, again, start at the very, beginning of the pay scale and folks who are hired from the outside in competitive salaries. I was told early on in my career that the way to boost your salary as a journalist was to move around a lot, right? To get competitive offers outside, to be able to continue to move up the salary scale. So for a place like the Post that hopes that we can keep people for the course of their career, we have to be very proactive in making sure that we're moving people up, particularly those who start with us very early.
Okay, great. Thanks, Krista. She's managing editor for diversity and inclusion at the Washington Post. Now, Beth Freckling, you're now editor of Education Week, but you've been at the Dallas Morning News and Politico. How do you see this whole issue? Oh, he can't hear you. Unmute, please. Unmute. Unmute. Okay. Oh, we still can't hear you. Unmute. Okay. All right, Beth, we can't hear you.
Yeah, okay, there.
Okay, now we got it.
Thank you, Richard. You know, when I was in Dallas, we worked to bring folks in both as interns, get through the process. You know, a lot of what with folks was we were a stepping stone often for sort of bigger papers, and we worked hard to keep people. It was not always easy competing against folks like the Post and the New York Times, and a lot depended on whether someone, you know, wanted to stay around. I was privileged to know Carrington in Dallas when he worked there. We were really just loved having him there, and Carrington, correct me if I'm wrong, but he was looking for kind of a new, he had grown up in Dallas, and I think that's right, Carrington, correct me if I'm wrong, but was ready to make some changes. And I understood that as someone who had done the same thing. You know, I want to follow up on the comments made earlier about nonprofits, and that is that it's been a wonderful change for me at Education Week. You know, we mostly don't ask people to work on weekends. People do take time off, and you know, there are not a lot of emails flying past about 6 o'clock every night, which is very unusual to the experiences that I've had at papers like everybody else here. But we're in the middle of you know, diversity, equity, and inclusive training right now, which I think is great, and we're really working hard on that. And then also just in terms of what we cover, and making sure that we keep that lens on, you know, on the very kinds of inequities that you're talking about, and that you know, are all over the schools. And that's something. I think a lot of it too, though, is whether people, we're different because we're more of a, you know, we're addressing specific audiences, particularly teachers and educators and superintendents. And so a lot of our stuff gets picked up elsewhere. And that's a good thing. I think it's a great place to really learn a specialty and to, you know, gain expertise. But we do face some of the same issues in terms of losing folks to good places elsewhere that see the talent and come and get people away. And I experienced in Dallas a lot, and it just was a heartbreaker. So it was hard to keep people, you know, who were in their early stages and wanted to go to the big places. We worked hard to do that, but it was tricky. I'll put it that way. So.
All right, thank you, Beth. All right, Mary, you have your hand up. Mary Cavallaro.
Yes, I just thought I'd put this out there. We have SAG-AFTRA COVID sidelined this, but we have been wanting to do a salary survey for the industry, a comprehensive salary survey. And we plan to be working with some partners on that. If you or your organization is interested in participating and working with us and doing that, please reach out to me, because the more partners, the better. As Rebecca pointed out, not every station is union, and not every major market is union. And that's always created a problem for SAG-AFTRA in terms of providing accurate data to people that we talk to. I put my name and my email in chat because we do help anybody And I say this to the professors out there, especially if you have students that are getting their first contract and don't want to hire a lawyer or an agent, we will do that for you as a courtesy, for your students as a courtesy, walk them through it so they learn the basics of an employment contract. We'll even do I'll do a meet with your class virtually. I've done that for many schools, and others of our staff will do that as well. But one of the things I just want to point out that I think is very interesting about our industry is that we're one of the only industries for which there's not a lot of good data out there for pay. And I find that interesting. And I think that there's a void there that could be filled. But I think the first step is for groups like ours and others here to work together to make sure that that data is available, because that is power. Last thing I'll say about that is in the last 2 years, I have found that employees are sharing their salaries with each other, which, by the way, is completely legal, and an employer cannot prevent you. It's actually unlawful for an employer to say that you cannot tell people what you make in your workplace. That's protected activity. So when they share that information, I have seen big things happen. I've seen in one newsroom, a woman who was significantly underpaid receive almost a 30% pay increase because her male coworker told her what he was making. And as a result, she went in there and asked for it, and they couldn't do anything but give it to her because she had pointed out that inequity. Now, we helped a little bit with the push, but I think that's important, that that data, that knowledge is power, as they say. And I think that's an important step towards trying to improve salaries in our industry.
You're here. Okay, Carrington, I'm going to give you the last word now that you've heard what everybody has said.
Richard, Richard, could I just make a couple of comments and ask a couple quick questions?
Yes.
One is, it seems in other industries, and I'm talking specifically about education and healthcare, those industries have been able to, also have a shortage of workers. They recruit their workers by offering them all kinds of things, including, for example, nurses. Nurses who are in the Philippines or in Ghana or wherever are offered in their contracts with these healthcare organizations. They're offered free transportation from wherever they are to the United States. They are offered assistance in helping them to find housing. They are offered, their families, the men in the families, are offered help in finding jobs in the United States. Their children are offered help in terms of getting the family to know the community and to know about schools, etc. So these multi-billion-dollar industries can do it. They know how to do it. But the industry in which that we're talking about now, media and communications, it's not doing it because it doesn't have the pressure. Healthcare didn't have the pressure. They wouldn't be offering these nice packages to women for nursing care. And they wouldn't, and also in education, schools are offering teachers incentives to come to smaller cities, smaller markets to work. So I think looking at their strategies is important for journalists and people in media. And the second thing I want to comment on and ask about is, and I don't want an answer, why is it so expensive to get an education in journalism? I mean, it's not
just journalism. It's
everything.
Yeah, schools are charging a lot of money now.
Yeah. So I think that also needs to be an issue, because you've got at least 4 dimensions to this problem. One is it's so expensive for young people to go to school. They have to get loans. The loans are expensive and they're very complicated. And then when they finish and they try to find a job, they don't get paid. So to me, at least those three elements have to be brought together, and groups like SAG-AFTRA, SBJ, NABJ have to sit down with employers and journalism schools and the people who are in charge of these loans and look at what is the ecology here and where is it taking us. Loans were meant to help people get through school and start out on a good footing in life. They're not, apparently not doing that. Jobs were meant, especially entry-level jobs, were meant to get people inspired to stay in the work for a career. Not 2 or 3 years, but 20 or 30 years. Apparently that's not happening either. Media owners, they don't come to the table because they're going to the bank with all the money that they're taking. And so I'd like us to think about how do we bring these elements together to get them to talk to each other if possible, and then how do we as organizers or in organizations, how do we define the specific points where these problems take place, and how do we counsel? Somebody mentioned this, we have to counsel these young people so that they don't get, we can't assume that they all know
what they're getting into.
The impact of these loans. We can't assume that they all know that their first job is going to be in Keokuk, Iowa, and they'll get paid $12,000 a year. We have to counsel them. We have to make sure that they know what's ahead for them. Because if we don't, first they'll leave, and second, they'll tell the next generation, don't go into that field. You can't live on what they pay you, and you're mistreated too. So this is a circular, granular kind of situation, and I think we've just touched and you've done a very good job, Richard, of touching on the various aspects of it. But more has to be done. More talking, more sharing, more, as Mary mentioned, more looking at data, real data, and more understanding that we have to teach these young people about the world that they're going into.
Here, here. One aspect of this that we did not get into is that a number of schools are now waiving tuition because of this crisis. And I'll have to put when I send out the chat remarks, I'll have to include some links there to some, like Harvard is one, and University of California, for example, system has just done it for Native American students. So there is a recognition on the part of some schools that they've got to do something on their end as well. Now, I wanted to ask Carrington, now that he's heard all of this, where are you?
Yeah, I really appreciate all the comments, because the support for one always just kind of hits close to home, because even after writing the piece, it was great to know that there were other folks who actually cared, actually were invested in that. That's always encouraging. So I really appreciate that. And I also appreciate Rebecca coming in, and because I really think in this situation, and even with some time to digest, I think candor is what we need in our industry when we have this conversation. And that's part of why I wrote the piece. If you go back and read it, I gave exact numbers about my salary, about I gave specific numbers of my debt for a reason, because what I found when I would talk to folks about this problem is that everybody thought they understood, they thought they knew what student debt looks like, but it was based on old numbers, right? It's based on student debt 10 years ago, 20 years ago, based on salaries that were good 20, 30 years ago. And so I think, it's been said before, I think speaking in specifics is really important for us to all be having the same conversation. Make sure we're all talking about the same industry, the same salaries, because then I think we can, then we can get the ball rolling on how do we fix it. But until we have a meeting of the minds, right, on even what our industry looks like right now, I don't know that we're going to be able to get to the progress that we need. And so I would love to see more study, not only more study, but again, I put out my salary. I love talking about salary when I'm at work. I make people uncomfortable because I'm like, how much you making? I say it loud. I try to create that environment. And even for the women that I work with, because I know, although I'm a Black man, still a man at the end of the day. And it's, I understand those inequities. And so I'm always asking how much, because I think we need to create that room for each other. And if there's anything, working at MLK 50, doing justice reporting, I've had some time to learn about corporations and how they move. And even I have a business minor as well, so it's not a foreign concept, but looking at corporations long enough, it actually didn't take me long to figure out that they do what they want to do, right? And even when we talk about the injustices that we might write about, companies are quick to say what they can and can't do. Corporations are quick to say what they can and can't pay. But capitalism is the name of the game. Making money is the name of the game. I found that oftentimes it's not about what they can't do, it's about what they won't do and don't want to do. And so, I think as journalists, it's ironic that we forget that and forget that we're workers as well. And we let our industry off the hook for a lot of things that we wouldn't anywhere else. And so that's why I'm, part of what I'm thinking about in the future too is not only collective bargaining, but even understanding the business models of the places we work and think about writers building leverage as well. And it's not just collective bargaining is one way to build leverage. There's also leverage in ownership of our skills, ownership of our creations, and being able to working with each other to push back. And
well, Carrington, what are you personally going to do?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things, and also it's not lost on me. The Dallas News Corporation is a publicly traded company, right? Recently unionized. And even in that building, though I'm on what we would say is the business side, the reporter in me isn't gone either. And so even today, I'm still in the newsroom having these same conversations with folks, for one. And number two, being a business analyst, counting the money, counting the data, understanding our numbers, also is not an accident of a job choice for me. I was very early in my reporting career, so, but I think I got pretty good. I think I learned a few things, sharpening other skills to figure out how I can help other reporters, my colleagues, build that leverage. So that's what I'm thinking about long term.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, it's time now for our introductions. We're short on time, so we want to introduce people who have not spoken, so we know who is here, and continue our networking. So let's go. Lee Adams Ashby. I don't see your face, but I see your name. I suppose that there's a relationship between you and Wally Ashby. Are you there? No, okay, all right. John Watson at AU. John.
Hi, John Watson, professor at American University School of Communication, Journalism Division.
Thank you. All right, Lee, do you want to say anything?
Yeah. Yes, there is a relationship between me and Wally Ashby. It's a healthy one. But I'm also a former journalist in another incarnation. Yeah.
Okay.
Both a journalist and also, another place that journalists sometimes end up on the other side of the desk, I guess, is working in politics with public officials. They all hire media people. They all hire press people. It's another place that people can be useful. And I'm so enjoying all this speaking truth to power I'm hearing. It's wonderful.
Very good. Glad to have you. All right, Athalia Knight, you haven't said anything.
I haven't. I'm Athalia Knight. I'm a retired reporter from the Washington Post, and I also teach part-time at Georgetown University.
Thank you, Athalia. Leon Dash, we introduced you as one of the Metro 7. Do you have anything else to impart?
I'll just say that I'm teaching journalism right now, beginning in the fall at the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, and enjoying myself. Thank you, Richard.
All right. That's the most important part, the last one. Okay. All right, Corey, you got a project you can tell us about.
Oh, okay. Yeah, my name is Corey Washington. I just started a blog trying to engage and empower our African American readership. And my background is I worked at ABC 7 in LA, also ABC 7 San Francisco, CBS 5 in Arizona, and which one am I forgetting? NBC 4 in LA. So it's a new endeavor for me. It's also a really exciting one. It's the first time I can sort of really put my career in my own hands. And I've also got my associate editor here with me, Felicia. So I'm really excited to be here with you guys.
Thank you. I'm glad you made it. Okay, Elizabeth and Henry, you haven't said anything. Henry Furman.
Hey, hello from LA. Henry Furman, retired from LA Times, still active in AAJA. We're having our big conference here in LA next week in our founding city, just before NABJ and NABJ does their thing. So I hope to see some of you out here. Thanks,
Okay.
Richard. Great topic. Fantastic topic.
Great. Thank you, Henry. Chevry, our producer for the evening.
Hi, everyone. I'm on deadline. So I'm Shelley. I'm with the Washington Informer.
All right. That's short and sweet. Roger Witherspoon. Are you unmuted?
Hi, yes, I just unmuted. Hello, and thanks again for having this. I've been a journalist for some 60 years and worked in all forms of the media. And I really appreciate Rebecca's comments tonight and her attitude. Since when I started out, SPJ didn't take blacks.
All right. Lillian Williams, a first timer from Chicago.
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed this program tonight. And I appreciate the honesty of Carrington, because I taught for a long time at Columbia College, and I worked at the Chicago Sun-Times and WKYC TV in Cleveland. So Carrington, I say, work at the Dallas News, but also get some experience in broadcast and go into management. And it pains me to hear your story, because anybody reading that piece that you wrote know that you have so much potential. And we don't want to lose you. And your voice needs to be heard in journalism. And you need to be around the table making decisions. Now, I know that it takes time for you to learn, the field and everything else, but you have so much potential. So listen to me, get back into it, go up the scale, learn as much as you can, get mentors, and get in the position so you can make a difference. That's
all right. Thank you, Lillian. Wendy, do you have anything briefly to add to what you've already said?
No, but if someone knows someone rich, Carrington student loans are like in the 90,000 range. So you could also just like solve this immediate problem, just write them a check. So the Powerball, the lottery, hook them up.
Okay. Dan Shelley, you have anything to add to what you've already said?
I just appreciate the invitation and the conversation very much. While I heard everything Rebecca said and it resonated with me, I can assure you that most responsible newsroom leaders are trying to do better and trying to do a better job of recruiting, retaining, and rewarding employees.
All right, thank you. Celia Wexler, you haven't said much. Are you unmuted? Unmute.
Yes. Well, first of all, Rebecca, I am so proud to have you as my president. I'm on the board of SPJ DC. But the other thing I want to just bring up is let's not let the government off the hook here. I mean, the Roosevelt Institute has done a really good series of reports on forgiveness of student loans. If you're talented, your income should not keep you from good schools, dream schools that you want to attend. It makes a difference, the context you make. And, there are proposals to forgive up to $50,000 in student loans, at least 10 grand for Pete's sake. And the young woman who was here from the administration talked about nonprofit loan forgiveness, which is a really nice concept. But I read a story today that the deadline for getting the paperwork for 10 years of nonprofit work is coming up, I think at the end of August. And the thing is that the administration could do this. It's important. It's a public good. Journalism needs to reflect diversity in every way, including economic, class. I know what it's like not to be able to afford the school of my dreams, but I at least married a Columbia J School graduate, and that made a huge difference. And I don't think everyone can just do that, marry, the graduate of the school of their dreams. But this was really interesting to me. And there are so many things I didn't know about my city, about, everything. So thank you very much for making, letting me listen to this incredibly interesting conversation. And I'm going to look up MLK50.com too. Thank you. I spoke too long.
That's all right. Thank you, Cecilia. Sharon Farmer. All right.
Oh, and happy Southeast Week. This is what I'm calling it, okay?
Southeast Week, okay. That's Southeast DC is what you mean.
That's right. So I enjoyed this whole conversation because there's a lot to do with how my career has gone. And I decided I didn't need no editorial, didn't need no newspapers, and I could deal with anybody to get photo jobs. So you learn that photojournalism can take you every place and you can shoot everything from food to fashion to sports. So where there's a way, there's a will. And the clubs that we get together with, because journalisms get together, because photographers get together, we're a lot stronger than most artsy kinds of people because we have a tendency to hang out together.
All right. Elliot Francis.
Hey, thank you, Richard. Elliot Francis, host producer of Now with Elliot Francis on Facebook and YouTube each week. If I can, for just a second, pass on some encouragement to Carrington and some of the other younger journalists here in regard to the conversation we had. I'm fortunate. I was an anchor reporter for many years, television and radio, and I was fortunate to be in the industry when they did pay a good salary. All that turned around in 2008, and corporations and news directors and producers and folks we used to call the suits wanted to tell you that they had less to work with. And that probably was true. But I agree with Rebecca, with Bob, many other people here. Things are beginning to turn around. So I encourage you to take their advice and push them, because the money is there. The corporations are making that money, but you won't get it unless you ask. And if you doubt what I'm saying, just go talk to any account executive, have them show you the rate card, the current rate card for any of these stations or publications, and you will see that the money is there, the finances are there to pay you the money that you're worth, but you got to ask. So go for it. Good luck.
That seems to be a theme. All right, Amy Eisman.
Hi, everyone. I'm Amy Eisman. I'm the director of the Journalism Division at American University. Carrington, inspirational. Thank you. I guess one thing I'd like to say to you is that your voice isn't on pause. We all heard it loud and clear. And to Wendi for the work that you've done. I was sending Wendi a note separately about what she's doing at her newspaper is amazing. And it makes Carrington's story that much more difficult, I guess, for all of us to grasp, because here's a terrific employer, here's a good salary, here's a cause and a passion that you loved, and we're still not making it. One of the things we try to do at AU is to offer fellowships to, because I think, I don't know if it was Maureen or somebody else that said that we have to look at the whole ecosystem and the cost of the schools. And, I like to try and figure out ways to help students pay for school. And so we have these fellowships along with Chris at the Post and some other places where students can work at news organizations and go to school for, less money. Unfortunately, you can only do it with a handful of students because of the number of organizations that could put up their kind of money, but it is at least something that we're trying. Just want to say, Richard, thank you so much. Carrington, thank you for teaching us so much. I really appreciate it.
All right, thank you, Amy. Andrea Morales.
Hi, so I'm the visuals director at MLK 50.
We don't see you.
Oh, you don't?
There you go. Oh, where are you?
Right there? Yep.
Okay, well, continue then.
Okay, well, I'm the visuals director at MLK 50. I'm very glad that y'all made some space for my bestie Carrington to say his piece, speak his truth, and y'all listened very intently. I'm a first generation college graduate myself with 3 degrees. Oh, hi. 3 degrees from, and I can work Zoom, I promise. 3 degrees from public universities, and I have $132,000 in student loan debt. So I'd also like to be in the queue for any rich friends that y'all might have that want to invest in a young Latina and her existential dread. But also I really want all of us to be free of this horrific, the systems that put us in all this debt. So I'm hopeful that this conversation is one part of that.
All right, thank you, Andrea. Mary C. Curtis.
Yeah, Mary C. Curtis. Shout out to Wendi, so proud. I'm zooming in from Washington, D.C., where I'm teaching in the School of the New York Times Summer Academy. Okay. And generally, I am a columnist at Roll Call, political columnist, the host of its Equal Time podcast. Also been subbing for Slate's daily podcast, What Next? And a senior leader with the Op-Ed Project.
Very good. Okay, thanks, Mary. Daryl Burnett.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. It's good to see Wendi. So fascinating story, Carrington. Good luck with your career. I'm a senior editor at the Chronicle of Higher Education, and we're actually offering a $10,000 fellowship right now for MSI and HBCU students. So I'm going to give that link to Richard. The deadline's next week. So
okay. Thank you. Thank you. All right, Caroline Brewer.
Richard, it's been another great program.
Good.
Wishing Carrington all the best, and thank you so much for sharing your story. I was listening or saw on Twitter today, somebody posted about how one person can make a difference, and I think that's definitely the case here. So I'm a former editorial writer and opinion writer. I've known Richard a long time, and I've just been really grateful for all of the roundtables. I've spent a lot of time in communications. I'm also here based in DC, and from, my heart is always with journalists, so I'm appreciative of knowing what the struggle is, so that I and my fellow colleagues in communications can be as supportive as possible.
Okay, thank you, Caroline. We got to keep moving. Wanda Lloyd, and she also wants to make an announcement.
Hi, I'll be brief, Richard. This is Wanda Lloyd, retired executive editor at the Montgomery Advertiser, and now an author and podcaster. I wanted to point out, I'm on the board of Journal-isms, on the Roundtable board, and we have been working all spring and summer to present a workshop, a panel discussion at NAHJ, NABJ next month. And so I wanted to call your attention to it. It's called Reckoning or Rhetoric, Holding News Media Accountable, Candid Conversations with Industry Leaders. And it's going to be moderated by Richard and also Anna Cabrera of CNN. And so I wanted to call your attention to that. Our panelists, and I hope I get them all, are Gilbert Bayon at KERA, Patrice Hardy, the editor of the Dallas Morning News, Wesley Lowry, and Michael Bolden. And am I missing anyone, Richard? I think I have them all.
Probably, but I don't have the list in front of me.
Yeah. So Richard, you have the date on that? Because that's the one
this
thing I
was
do.
on Thursday, and I'll give you the time when I send out the chat. I'll put that in the chat room.
Okay, great. But I wanted to call your attention to that and hope that you all, if you're going to NAHJ, NABJ, that you will attend. If you're not going to be there, please let your colleagues know about it, because we do want to have some folks in the room. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Wanda. Felicia, are you there? Okay, we'll get back to Felicia then, from Black News Now. And Dawn, do you have anything to add about Buffalo or anything else you've heard today?
No, I haven't. I don't have anything else to add. I guess it's just a healing time at this point for everyone involved in, the families, the people who live in the neighborhoods. Life has to get better for everyone, there. And that would be a tribute to the people who lost their lives on that day.
Right, very good. Krissa, are you there? I don't see you on my screen anymore, but I know you were there. Krissa? Okay. All right, we'll get back to Krissa then. Ingrid Sturgis.
Hello, everybody. I'm Ingrid Sturgis, Chair of the Department of Media, Journalism, and Film at Howard University Kathy Hughes School of Communications. I've been a longtime member of the Roundtable and one of the, I don't know, what do you call us, Richard, one of your advisors?
Oh, yeah, she's on our strategy committee.
Yes, I am. And I see this at Howard. We're an HBCU, and a lot of our students are first generation college students, as well as from Pell Grant eligible families, which means many don't have the money to pay for college and they have to take out loans. And we talk about this a lot, and the fear is that all of these students who graduate with this debt won't be able to become journalists. And while we've been a leading producer of Black journalists throughout history, throughout the last 50 years, it might mean that we may not be able to produce as many journalists if we can't figure out this thing about how to get them how to get them in college education and free from college debt. So I appreciate hearing Carrington's story, and it's so much the story of many of my students. I understand it, and I'm thinking about ways that we can help our students. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Ingrid. All right, Felicia is here. Is there? Do you want to introduce yourself, Felicia? Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Felicia. I'm from BLK News Now. I'm a writer, and I really enjoyed today. I feel like I wish the public could get this information. I feel like a lot of more people need to hear it.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, is there anybody I missed? Well, good then. Okay, we had a, I hope an informative conversation. It seems like the onus is really not on the government so much from this conversation, but on the media employers. So that's something to take away. And if you have any more to say about that, just drop me a line and I can add that to the chat as well. So thank you, everybody. Thank the people on Facebook as well. And we'll see you next month. And in between, some people may see other people at all these conventions that are taking place. So we'll see you in August. And thanks to everybody for attending. And wait for the printout of the chat.
Thank you, Richard.
Good night.
Thank you, Richard.
Okay.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you.
Goodbye, all. Have a great week.
Good night.
Okay, that's it.
Bye, Rich.